The recent controversy regarding NFL players kneeling during the national anthem is a byproduct of how political our society has become. You can't get away from politics, no matter where you go. It's in the stores we shop, the sports we watch, the ads on TV. It's in our award shows, our television, in the streets, and on every social media platform we use. There's no escaping it. It's literally everywhere. But why is this? The election was last year. Why are we fighting this political war as though the election were a month from now? The answer is that government is too big for depoliticization to happen. The consequences of losing the political battle are too severe, and because of this, you can never afford to rest. To stop fighting would be to give your opponent an advantage you cannot afford. So there's no truce, no ceasefire, no setting up winter quarters to await the next election cycle. Instead, what we have is perpetual and escalating political warfare. This is the natural result of politics. Politics divides and polarizes. It separates and destroys. Because government is violence. It exists through violence. It exists to commit violence. It is maintained through violence. It is anti-volunteerism and anti-society. It is, in the words of Thomas Paine, at best a necessary evil, and at worst an intolerable one. People do not act well with a gun at their heads. You cannot love your neighbor as yourself when that neighbor wishes to use a coercive middleman to inflict violence against you. And the bigger the government becomes, the more violence each side of the political spectrum is threatening to wield against the other. This is a recipe for disaster. We cannot continue like this, especially if we want any hope of remaining one cohesive nation. We either must roll back the power government has over our lives, or break up. There is no other alternative. Politics poisons peaceful societies. It turns brother against one another. It divides families and sows discord. It can suffer no substitute to its malevolent authority. Against it, all means of voluntary society must bow. In a society where politics is everything, violence is inevitable. In the words of Frederick Bastiat, make the law upon the principle of fraternity, proclaim that all good and all bad stem from the law, that the law is responsible for all individual misfortunes and all social inequalities, then the door is open to an endless succession of complaints, irritations, and revolutions.
Roads to Liberty presents The Guardians of Liberty with your hosts, Nathan Parada and Zach Taylor.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am Nathan Parada, your host for the Guardians of Liberty podcast, joined as always with the one and only Zach Taylor.
What's up?
How you doing, everybody? This has been a hell of a week, hasn't it, Zach?
I'm done with people this week.
I think at some point when you're getting into politics, you're going to be done with people, and you're going to be done with just everything going around you at some point. It's just a matter of getting through that, I think. Because it seemed that way during the last election cycle. About a week before the actual election happened, I was just so worn out and tired and pissed off about everything. I'm just like, you know what? I don't even care about the election anymore. I just want to.
I miss how calm the last election cycle felt, because it seems like it's been ramped up since then.
Yeah, it hasn't stopped. That's the thing about it. I mean, usually after elections, it's the political warfare dies down. Mm-hmm. It doesn't keep going for months and months and months. But it never did that this time. It's just perpetual. It's never ending now. It's so absolutely frustrating.
And it's not like it's just simmering like it was. It's building. We've got violent clashes with the police from Antifa, and we have neo-Nazis running people down with their vehicles. This is ramping up. Now, good on the Berkeley cops that the the last couple events out there, they've actually locked things down quite a bit. But to do that, they are kind of violating civil rights to a certain extent to keep people from beating each other. And that's, government getting stronger on the backs of our not being able to get along.
And like I said in the opening, this is all a result of the ever-present government, ever-present power that government has over our lives. You cannot get away from it. And because government is so large, so powerful, and has so much control of our everyday lives, people cannot depoliticize themselves. It's everywhere.
The consequences of losing are insane right now because they've built up this government into a juggernaut that, they're, with the Republicans being in power, there are the Jeff Sessions of the world that would take that power and severely limit human rights. And on the other side, the Bernie Sanders of the world are going to do the same thing from a different angle, and it's life or death. We are about to the point where whoever does not control the government is in danger of physical harm from the government, like more than the occasional police shooting or things like that. We're getting to the point where it's going to start getting violent and ugly.
No, I absolutely agree. And one of the things driving this is the cultural civil war that we are having as well. Because there's always been sort of a culture war going on. That's always been going on, but it's so much more violent in your face and out in the open now than it's ever been. And it's not just that government has all this power and it's going to use it against the losers of any particular election. I mean, that's always been around with us too. Maybe not to the degree that it is now, but it's always kind of been there. Mm-hmm. But now it seems that both sides have so much anger and animosity towards each other, and they split into these camps so thoroughly and have made politics into such a binary field that now they feel if the Democrats take back control in the next election and we have some really hardcore progressives take over, I think the gloves are off at that point. I think they'd feel justified after going through 4 years of Donald Trump, regardless of what his actual policies he pushes through. Mm-hmm. I think culturally they see him as so disgusting and nasty that if they take back control of government, gloves are off. And they're going to push through whatever they want. And, I think that's kind of the political blowback and this cultural warfare that we might see come 4 years from now.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't think that the Democrats are going to win in 4 years, actually. I think every time Trump gift wraps them something by going out there and saying that people should be fired for kneeling for the anthem, the Democrats take that easy layup and they try to dunk and they just miss completely by going out and being like, well, we need to kneel to protest Trump. And it's like, or you could just let him shoot himself in the foot and stop getting in his way. But no, can't do that.
Never kill a man who's about to commit suicide. And that seems like what the Democrats and the liberal progressives are always doing. I mean, here's Donald Trump. He's always making a fool of himself. And the Democrats look at that and say, hold my beer. I'm going to make a bigger fool of myself.
It's like Shapiro talks about it a lot. He'll say that the one thing Trump is good at is politicizing issues that should unite us. And I mean, that's what this is. This is such a nothing. We're fighting over, look, I'm about to offend some people. We're fighting over a cloth.
How dare you?
And a bar song.
How dare you say such a thing? It is not a cloth. It is a magical sky cloth. It's different.
So here's the thing. I understand, having been in the military and growing up in a military family, like we go back before America was a thing. I understand the emotional significance of what the flag symbolizes to some people. Those people need to understand that not everyone is going to view it the same way. When they sit there and talk about, well, we have our shared values and the flag represents these things, it doesn't represent the same thing to every person. I personally don't care. I don't look at a flag and think of my fallen battle buddies. I don't need a flag for that. I think about them every day. I don't need a flag to represent my freedom, because a flag is a symbol and symbols can be destroyed. The concept is what matters.
Exactly. It's the same exact thing for when that Confederate flag controversy was going on not too long ago. And I made this point at the time that the Confederate flag means different things to different people. It doesn't mean just one thing. To some people, it represents slavery and oppression. To others, it means Southern pride and to be proud of being a Southerner. And I can understand both point of views. That's the nature of symbols. Symbols mean different things to different people. It's not just one thing. And no matter what position you take on a symbol, they're all correct. A swastika can mean a symbol of hate and vile genocide to most people, but go to northern India and it's a religious symbol. Yeah. I remember walking down the streets in Seoul, seeing swastikas on the sides of buildings and thinking, what the hell is this? But then I come to figure out it was a religious symbol. Mm-hmm. And
I forget. Is it peace or harmony that it's supposed to represent? I forget.
I'm not exactly sure. I didn't really dig into it all that much.
I think it's backwards too. Like the swastika is backwards, but
yeah, it is backwards. But I mean, how many people are going to look at it and be like, "Oh, it's backwards, completely different"? Yeah, they're going to look at it and not see.
Mm-hmm. So here's the flip side of that, though. For the people on the other side of this, you are protesting based on BS. The statistics do not bear out the claim that you're making.
We're talking about the kneelers now, right?
The statistic, like the idea that cops are inherently racist and are arresting black people more than white people or whatever. So, per capita, yes, African Americans are arrested at a higher rate than white Americans. They also commit crimes at higher rates. And that's got more to do with class than race. Because if you take out the factors of money, essentially, and you look at people based on class, it breaks down about even.
Now, I remember seeing a statistic, and I wish I remembered where I saw this, that if you take out of wedlock births as a factor, then crime rates between whites and blacks essentially equalizes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about the same. Like that's one of the hugest factors when it comes to statistics like this. It's not genetic. It's not that black people are more prone to violence than white people. That's not at all the case. It's that when you are raised in a poor household with a single parent who can't watch you all the time, then it's more likely that you're going to end up growing up in the gang and in violence. Mm-hmm.
That's every race. Every race that, so I'm gonna deep dive here a little bit. A lot of the Southern black culture that kind of leads into the gang culture. That is not black culture. That is not African culture. That is Scottish culture. The way gangs are structured is very much how Scottish clans are structured. The gangs in the South are based on the culture in the South, which is very Celtic. And if you look at the way specifically Celtic people and the way they interact with government and crime and things, there's a lot of similarities. It's not race, it's culture, it's a lack of fathers. We have done, and I wish I had the study in front of me, I didn't think about this before we went on air. There's a lot of studies that have gone in where they've looked at empathy and figured out that it is not mothers that teach empathy, it is fathers that teach empathy. And without that, you are dealing with a broken person. And I know that's going to make some people mad because we're libertarians and we believe that people should be able to do whatever, they want as long as they're not harming other people, but culture matters. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be allowed to have children out of wedlock. I'm saying you should have kids in wedlock. That is the best option. And we should not be making bad choices just because we're free to do so.
Yeah, you of course you shouldn't. I mean, it's the difference between being a libertarian and a libertine. I might think that you have the right to shoot your arm up with heroin all you want, but would I? No, hell no. It's bad for you. That might kill me. It might make me addicted. I'm never in a million years going to shoot drugs. Use drugs of any kind, just because of the bad consequences of that. A libertine is just all about feeling good. Mm-hmm. It's all about just doing whatever comes to mind. But the really ironic thing about all this is while at the same time progressives are calling, police pigs and racists, blah, 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 these are the same exact people who are the ones passing all the laws that police are going to have to enforce. I mean, what was the name of that guy in New York who was choked out by police for selling loose cigarettes? Eric Gardner. Now, see, the cops in that situation were just doing their jobs. What they were doing was enforcing a law passed by liberal politicians. And if that law had never existed, there would have been no reason for that confrontation in the first place. There is, I think the Lancaster Party posted this today, that there's no crime so trivial that the state won't murder you for. And a pen in a politician's hand is a gun to a civilian's face. Now, that's essentially what it is. It's a threat of violence against the citizens of this country. And if you're going to pass a law, you better be damn sure that you're willing to do violence against, people who violate that law.
The end result of every law is eventually a gunfight.
It is. It's either a gunfight or just a mowed down civilian.
So let me back up, because you know what I'm saying, so I'm going to explain what that means. Every law has to be enforced. If you make a law that says that someone cannot wear a green shirt, well, green's my favorite color, I'm going to wear a green shirt anyway. So then the police are going to have to come and tell me I have to take off my green shirt, and I'm not going to do that. So they're going to try to arrest me. And I think that's BS, so I'm going to fight them. And they're going to shoot me. And I know green shirt, obviously that's a dumb example. So's marijuana. That's how dumb this is.
Yeah. There's too many laws that tell you how to live your life. You can't use marijuana. Even for medical purposes in a lot of states, you can't use marijuana. Even the federal government will put you in jail if they can get their hands on you for using medical marijuana. This is how crazy it is.
You were at the rally in Lincoln, right? Were you?
Unfortunately, I couldn't make that.
Oh. So, man. So one of the speakers, and I forget her name, and I need to get in touch with her because I wanted to interview her for the state page. But her son has violent seizures, and they have pictures of what he looks like after having one of these, and his face is all bruised, his lip is cut, his eye is black. It looks like someone got a hold of him and beat the crap out of him. No, it's because he has a condition that goes away. with medical marijuana. We have a bunch of busybodies that have decided that they know what's best for people, and they have all the money, so that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, these are people that think it'll be better for that kid if they take him away from his loving parents and put his parents in a jail cell. That's better than just letting him use this medicine that obviously helps. And then people ask me why I'm a libertarian, and then I hear stories like this. You know, I hear stories about parents being separated from their children because they wanted to give them the best medical treatment they could. And some politician in Washington, D.C. thinks it's his business to butt his head into that relationship and say, no, that medicine is not good for you. It's better for you just to live with the seizures. It's better for you to be miserable for your entire life. Better that than taking cannabis oil.
Yeah. This is going to be an angry podcast.
Yeah, because this is, honest to God, this is infuriating. Yeah. The things that government does to people, the lives it ruins, it's absolutely infuriating, and I cannot stand it.
Whenever you go on Facebook and have these debates with people, and they'll be like, well, marijuana's wrong, and blah, 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 and you go on their Facebook, and you can almost always find a picture of them with a beer, and it's like, dude, you are a level of hypocrite that makes me want, like, I live by the non-aggression principle, but I don't always like it.
That's a good way to put it. But no, I mean, but they don't put two and two together. You know, there's no consistent campaign to demonize beer the way there is to demonize marijuana, even other drugs. You know, there's such consistent propaganda from our government and from society to demonize these things. That doesn't exist for alcohol. But when you look at the statistics, alcohol kills way more people. It causes way more problems. People don't smoke pot and beat their wives. But they will drink alcohol and beat their wives. You know, I mean, no one's ever overdosed and die off pot. They overdose and die all the time off alcohol. But that's okay for some reason. You know, because, you know, Jack Daniels isn't medicine. It's not going to compete with pharmaceutical companies the way marijuana might. So there's no big lobbying push to get alcohol, to make alcohol illegal. And plus, we already learned our lesson from that. Yep. Well, we very specifically learned our lesson from alcohol, whereas, you know, we won't learn our lesson from the drug war until it's actually ended and the benefits of that become readily apparent. And we can point to examples like Portugal all we want, but until that becomes the reality at home, it's not going to seep into people's consciousness that, oh, wait, this was a mistake. Maybe we didn't have to spend billions and billions and billions of dollars ruining millions of people's lives. Maybe that was a bad thing.
Here's what gives me hope. The Generation Z, which is the kids that are junior high, early high school right now, they think, you know, by and large, they are socially more, how do I say this? They're socially more accepting while being more personally conservative. And I think that's going to save us. We have to stay on that generation and have that mindset take a hold.
See, I thought millennials were going to take on this libertarian banner with the Ron Paul revolution, but they all jumped ship when Bernie Sanders came along. So that was a disappointment.
Millennials are just a bunch of whiners that are looking for a cause to believe in, but not a cause to actually fight for. A cause that they can get on Twitter and complain about.
And we say that as millennials, yep. Technically. So,
I mean,
we're not.
Most of my politicking is on social media, and I just kind of created a spot for myself to do that.
Yeah, we're not baby boomers. Like, oh, those drunk kids in their politics. No. We grew up in this generation too. You know, almost all my friends are millennials. I'm a millennial. My brothers and my sister, they're millennials. So it's not like it's not like we're baby boomers just looking down on all those young people. No. I'm quite disappointed in the direction this generation has taken, but there's hope for the next That's what we got. How did we get on this topic, by the way? We were talking about culture.
Well, this is the
in
culture
NFL.
war. This is
Yeah,
millennials are one part of the culture war. Well, the next battlefield is Generation Z.
you know what? The really upsetting thing about all this is that this culture war has made football not fun anymore.
Well, football already wasn't fun. Thank you, commercials.
Yeah, I mean that's always made it less fun. I mean, usually I would just say, screw the NFL. I'm gonna watch college football. But the Huskers suck this year, so not even that is very fun anymore. It's like you wait the whole year for football to start, and all of a sudden the NFL is mired in a culture war, and the Huskers suck at football.
Well,
So it's like, damn it.
I mean, it would not surprise me if Saturday rolls around and there is a bunch of players from a bunch of teams taking a knee.
Well, see, that's the thing about college. Most teams in college, the teams are in the locker room during the national anthem.
Are they?
Yeah, that's why you haven't seen this in Nebraska. I mean, I
Yes,
remember we did last year, but that was at Northwestern, and that's one of the only teams in the Big Ten that have their players on the field during the anthem. That's why we saw it then. So that's why you'll never see it at Memorial Stadium. I mean, we should just go back to that. I mean, I think before 2009, that's how everybody did it.
Yeah,
And then
then the government started shelling out money to the NFL because they love shelling out money to the NFL.
Yeah, not only is it taxation is theft and all that, but not only do they give them charity status, which they're not, but not only do they give them that status, but now the Department of Defense is taking money that they take from you and I, giving it to the NFL so they can put on a big old patriotic show in the middle of the field, and everyone just got jets fly by. You got people in the stands holding up placards that make out the American flag. You know, they let troops run out with the teams from the locker rooms.
Here's what's the most sickening thing to me. You know all those really heartwarming videos of a soldier coming home and surprising his family at a football game or whatever?
Get me every time.
Those are all paid for.
Yep. Yes, they are. And then our tax dollars, ladies and gentlemen, whenever someone says, who will build my roads, forget the roads. How about we get our tax dollars and stop paying for sports stadiums and, flag waving at NFL games?
I would say we could spend less tax money, bring all those people home to begin with, and then we won't need the heartwarming moments. They'll just be with their families where they belong.
Yeah. How about that? How about they don't go away to fight stupid wars overseas? They just stay home all the time. That's a great idea. And why didn't anyone ever think of that? I mean, here's the thing about politicizing the NFL. It began in 2009. This has been politicized forever. We've had these big shows going on. But that was all just normal stuff. That never got media attention. No one's harping on that. That's just normal. It's what Americans do. Mm-hmm. We worship the flag. We have nationalistic ceremonies. Apple pie and football, the essential Americana these days.
Yeah.
But when it came, so it's always been politicized, at least since 2009. But when it came to this kneeling during the anthem, that kind of just threw a wrench in the whole thing. Now all of a sudden, this big old ceremony that people have been paid to put on in 2009, it backfired. That's what this is. It's a giant backfire. And the liberal media looked at this and said, "Oh my goodness, this is amazing. Let's give this way more attention than it deserves." Mm-hmm. We got one guy kneeling for the national anthem, and all of a sudden, it's a national controversy. I'm like, why? You just got a B-list quarterback at best, who's not going to see any playing time anyway, taking a seat. And not only that, the incredible hypocrisy of the guy. Like, he's going to protest mass incarceration and then come to a press conference wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, excuse me, how do you not see the hypocrisy of this? I mean,
because he doesn't know who the hell Che Guevara is. No one on the left knows anything about him other than he was a communist. And Americans on the left have this stupid idea of what communism is. And I pray to God they never get to see it, because wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish communism on my worst enemy. It's such a horrifyingly terrible philosophy that always ends badly. And here's Colin Kaepernick. His protest is apparently about mass incarceration and police killing innocent people. Well, what do you think the communists do? That's the communist thing. You ever heard of a gulag? Mass incarceration, hello?
It's almost like they're known for that.
It just undermines everything that he claims to be about. You know what I mean? It's just
that's the American left right now. Everything is, they claim one thing and the reality is the exact opposite. Conservatives have some really messed up views on some things and really need to learn to leave people alone, but at least they live in reality most of the time.
Jeff Sessions doesn't live in reality.
We won't talk about Jeff Sessions. That'll just get me going again.
All right, we'll leave him out of it. But yeah, conservatives, I think the biggest thing, though, that I've taken away from this whole NFL thing is that the conservatives have really reminded me why I'm not one of them.
Oh, definitely.
Because since the election, the left has been so bad, so out of control, so irrational, that it's just made me sympathize more and more with conservatives. Like, oh my goodness, like Ben Shapiro can't even go to a college campus without being called a fascist. What the heck is going on here? So I'm like, okay, conservatives, you're getting better in my eyes, but it was only because the left was getting so bad.
Yeah, it was just by comparison they were starting to look better, and it's like, oh wait, no, I forgot.
Oh no, they suck too. I forgot they suck too. It's like the irrationality of this. I get it. You don't like people kneeling for the flag, but Donald Trump made things so much worse by calling for NFL teams to fire players that knelt. Before we had 9 people who would do it on a Sunday. It's like, okay, 9 people. Now the entire NFL is kneeling. Like, thank you, Donald Trump.
That's why we can have nice things.
You can't have even football. Even football has to be all about politics these days. It's so absolutely incredible. I think one of the things that really gets me though about this whole culture war is, conservatives are being so bad right now, but my goodness, I think it's exemplified by the Che Guevara T-shirt that Kaepernick wore. It's just the anti-white, anti-male sentiment that a lot of lefties have. And you don't have to be an alt-righter to see this.
I'm letting you say that because I'm the white guy.
Yeah, let me, the Puerto Rican, say this. But no, you see, I can pass as white if you squint your eyes, so I have white privilege too. So let's just keep that in mind.
I guess.
No, I've heard people make this argument that if you're
light-skinned,
if you're light-skinned, you got this.
When you get really far down the leftist oppression Olympics and they start talking about light-skinned privilege, it's like, guys, you're trying too hard.
Yeah, that's the thing about this. You don't need to be alt-right or anywhere near that to see that the left is blatantly racist. And I mean that in its actual meaning. When I say racist, I'm using that word by its real meaning. And I'm not talking about this stupid leftist idea that you have to judge people by their color plus have institutionalized power, whatever crap they're peddling. No. You're racist if you put people into categories based on their skin color and then judge everybody based on what category they fall into.
And let's be real about it. We don't say that because they're racist against white people, even though they are in a lot of cases.
No,
welfare is the most our welfare state is the most racist thing imaginable. Black Americans, as a culture, have taken a nosedive since the welfare state because of the single parent thing that we talked about earlier. Without fathers, no culture can survive. It is impossible.
You tell that to hardcore radical feminists these days. I know, but that's the thing about the welfare system has created an incentive for single motherhood.
It's created an incentive to make bad choices.
Yeah, it's called a moral hazard, and the left doesn't seem to understand that that's an actual thing. You know, it's crazy because it affects white people too, but the left is so absolutely racist that they don't even acknowledge that white poverty exists. I mean, remember when Bernie Sanders had the gall to say that white people don't know what it's like to be poor? Do you remember that during the primary debates with Hillary Clinton? He had the gall to say, if you're white, you don't know what it's like to be poor. Just sat there stunned that he would say that. I mean, if he'd won the friggin' primary, I'd be half tempted to buy a billboard outside of a trailer park and just put that quote up there for every poor white individual in that trailer park to see. That's absolutely a racist thing to say.
So here's the thing. Typically, you hear this nonsense from the left, and it will be coming from upper middle class people with a college education.
Privileged people, in other words.
Yes. Like the concerned student, blah, 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 down in Missouri was a rich black kid from Omaha.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I have lived running from repo men in a literally cockroach-infested drug house without a job, not knowing where my next meal was coming from. I know what poverty feels like. It doesn't know race. It doesn't know gender. It just knows suffering. So I get really pissed off when they start talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've never known. And you would think by the leftist oppression Olympics that me being a Puerto Rican living in the South most of my life, I would have, I'd be higher on the, or lower, I don't know exactly how the oppression Olympics works, but I'd be more oppressed on their scale than you, simply by the fact that I am technically a person of color and I lived in the deep South for most of my life. You know what? I never, not once in my life living there, had any kind of racism directed towards me. Not once. I always lived in a nice middle class family in a suburban home. And I among mostly white people my whole life.
Nathan, why have you internalized your racism?
Why have I don't know. Why I am such an Uncle Tom, aren't I? I don't know what the Puerto Rican version of Uncle Tom is, but I'm sure there is one.
Uncle Tomas?
Uncle Tom, yeah. Theo Thomas, that's what I am. But it's one of those things when you classify privilege based solely on race or gender, then you're missing reality completely.
You ignore the fact that we're all privileged to be in what is still the most capitalist society, and thus we have the best chance of making something out of our lives.
I mean, I think it's that a lot of lefties, they know this. They know that they're incredibly lucky to live in this country, but they feel guilty about that.
Probably.
I mean, I've been listening to a lot of Dave Smith over the last week. And by the way, Dave Smith's Part of the Problem podcast, excellent. I suggest it for everybody. But I've been listening to a lot about him, and he has this idea that like he can go to the store and buy a couple rotisserie chickens and go home and eat that for a week, and that's kind of him saving money. That's like his idea of living frugally is buying 2 rotisserie chickens and making that last a week. Whereas, he'll go to a restaurant and the person sweeping the floors will be a first-generation immigrant from Mexico, and he'll be like 40, 50 years old, an older individual, and he'll be living a life that's so much lower than what Dave is, and he'll look at him and feel kind of guilty about that. Like, what have I done? Really, what have I done except be born in the richest, most prosperous country in the entire world? And that makes me deserving of enjoying these riches, while this individual came from a poorer country, he doesn't. I mean, it's just the fact that over generations and generations of time, we developed a society that has the riches and prosperity that we have. And it's not something to feel guilty about. It's just a fact of life. Other countries are presently going through their own version of the 1800s that we had. Back then, everything was crappy for Americans. I mean, the Americans in the 1830s lived off $1 a day. 90%, I think it was actually 95% of people made their own clothing. And then all of a sudden come 1910, and you have the highest standard of living of any country that's ever existed. People are shopping from mail order catalogs, not making their own clothing. They're owning automobiles, and it's an amazing jump in wealth. And you know what? The rest of the world, they're catching up, but it's going to take a while for that to happen. It's not going to happen all at once, and it's not America's fault that the rest of the world didn't have their industrial revolutions until later.
So here's something I actually want to touch on a little bit. When we talk about, well, we don't want to buy stuff that's made in sweatshops, that's like slave labor, you are screwing people in the third world. That is the best job available to them. And we are seeing a growing middle class in China because they did sweatshops. It is a part of the progression of an economy. You have to go through that phase. If you don't buy their goods, they don't get out of poverty. That's how it works.
That's absolutely how it works. I mean, that's how it worked for the United States. I mean, I'm sure as a libertarian, you've seen people just denigrate and crap all over the Industrial Revolution age. Like, oh, it was so crappy. Children worked. Like, no, the Industrial Age is when children stopped working.
Yep.
It's all of human history when children worked. I mean, what do you think children were doing 100 years before the Industrial Revolution? You think they were going to school? No, they were working in the field. They were starving because they couldn't grow enough food to feed themselves and their parents. It was only after industrialization, only after the Industrial Revolution that children stopped working. And that's the place in time that countries like China now find themselves in. Give it 100 years, if they can
faster.
Hopefully faster. Yeah, I mean, probably a lot faster, because the thing is, in our Industrial Revolution, we had to figure everything out ourselves. They at least have the benefit of all this technology already being discovered, and they just have to put it to its correct use. If they continue to embrace liberalization of their economy, in the classical sense,
yep.
Embracing free market capitalism, if they continue to do that, they'll be fine. If they revert back to communism, they're screwed.
I think they know that if they try that, they'll have a revolution on their hands, because people there have something to lose now, and people are dangerous when they have something to lose.
Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, it wasn't very long ago that the, quote, Great Leap Forward happened. That wasn't very long ago. I mean, there's still people in China who remember the horrific conditions that Mao put on them.
Yep. And
to see that turn around so quickly due to them embracing more capitalistic philosophies, I mean, it's not perfect. What China is living under, like a super Keynesian philosophy right now, which is better than communism. Keynesian, any form of capitalism is better than communism, but Keynesianism still has huge problems inherent in the system. So it's gonna have problems.
Yep.
But it's not because of the capitalistic ideas that they've embraced. It's because it's not capitalistic enough.
Yep.
They still have central planning that's still gonna cause problems. But at least it's progress.
So we should probably jump off of this, or we're gonna run out of time, and talk about the political things that have happened this week. Like, what was the first one? The first one was the healthcare bill, and I forget whose name was attached to it, but it doesn't matter.
I remember it was Lindsey Graham. Wasn't it Graham Cassidy?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Graham Cassidy bill.
So, I'm going to take the unpopular opinion for a libertarian. That should have passed. It was not a great bill. It was a step forward. And we have to start... So I'm going to take a hit for this one. The left did not get us to where we are today by taking huge chunks out of us. They got us here by moving the line a couple inches every time. We are not going to get it all back at once. That's not how this works. We need to start taking bites back. This was not a good bill, but it was something. We need something. Now we're getting something, because the other big healthcare thing is Rand Paul was talking about that the White House is going to have an announcement, and they did. Next week, Trump is saying that he is going to sign an executive order that will allow people to buy insurance plans across states.
Yeah, I never understood why. I never understood why you couldn't already do that. It makes no sense that you wouldn't be able to buy insurance across state lines. Makes no sense whatsoever. That's definitely
people who had a vested interest in that not happening paid a lot of money for it to not happen.
I mean, that's always what it comes down to, doesn't it?
Yep. I mean, that's why so marijuana originally was never supposed to be outlawed. Hemp was, because someone who owned a lot of paper mills realized that he was about to get destroyed by the hemp production in America, because there had been some technological leap forward where hemp was going to get really easy to get turned into paper. And I'm butchering this story because I'm trying to tell it quickly, but that's why marijuana is illegal, is because they were going after hemp to protect an industry, because someone couldn't survive on the free market.
I mean, I always said that Republicans lost the battle over healthcare the second they started talking about replace.
Yeah.
You know, once it's turned from repeal to repeal and replace, then they lost, because they undermined the fundamental argument that they had, that free markets are best. That's the argument you need to make against liberal progressive policies. You don't win this battle by saying, okay, we're going to be less progressive than you are. That's not how you win this battle. No, the minute you start talking that way, you've already lost. Now, it may take a while for the political realization of that loss to sink in, but you've lost. There's no coming back from that. And I think that's what Rand Paul was trying to hold firm on, the let's just repeal it, because he knows that whatever repeal happens is the only repeal that's going to happen. There's not going to be okay, let's repeal Obamacare piecemeal, one piece at a time. I don't think that's ever going to go down. I think Republicans will take whatever healthcare bill they can get, no matter how little it repeals Obamacare. They'll call it a victory and move on with their lives, and nothing else is going to happen. We're going to be stuck with it forever.
I understand that logic, and it's hard to disagree with, but the Democrats have worked taking those small bites for a very long time now, and it's worked for them.
But
so
the difference,
the Republicans, and I get it, we're not Republicans, and I'm trying to give them some advice on how to not suck. Really, just close your party, come over to our side, give us your money, and we'll teach you.
I mean, the key difference here is that the Democrats are legitimately progressive, whereas the Republicans are not conservative.
That's a very good point.
That's the key difference here. I mean, the progressives can live with taking chunks, getting victories in chunks, because they have their ultimate goal still in mind. They're still looking for that ultimate victory. Whereas Republicans are just trying to sate their voter base. They're just trying to make their voters happy. They just need a quote-unquote win so they can take back to their voters and say, look, we did something. We fulfilled our campaign promises. But they don't actually want to repeal this thing, I don't think. I don't think they actually want to go to a free market system the way we would. So going in chunks doesn't really work, because all they're looking to do is to placate their voter base. They're not looking to get an ultimate victory at some point in the future. At least I don't think so. And I mean, it might be better to live forever with this new bill than what we had before. But understand that once we get the new bill, that's it. And we're never going to get anything else. At least not from Republicans.
So I think the problem is, and we have this problem with libertarianism, like a principled conservative or a libertarian, there's something that we share. They're not really the kind of people that want to get into office and tell you what to do with your life. So we don't get a lot of politicians coming from those molds. Instead, you get the neocons, because they love telling people what to do with their lives. That's what the Republican Party is. It is conservatives who are voting for neocons because neocons are better than Democrats in their minds.
Yeah. And neocons are former communists. I mean, that's where the philosophy came from. Mm-hmm. So it's no surprise that they're just as big government as the progressives are.
Right. The problem is that they're like the real conservatives, like the Rand Pauls and Mike Lees and those guys are so badly outnumbered in their own party. Guys, the only way you're gonna scratch this is to swallow the social conservatism nonsense that you're doing. Come join the Libertarian Party and make a third option, because you're not going to get it done where you're at. It's just, you're too outnumbered. At least here, if you brought real, like the conservatives, if they just gave up on the Republican Party and joined the Libertarian Party, it would be strong enough to win some seats, gain some momentum, and put up an actual fight to the big government progressivism that's going on in both parties.
And it would only take the Libertarian Party having enough seats that neither side has a clear majority. Mm-hmm. That it wouldn't take us taking half of Congress to enact change. We would only need to take enough seats that neither side can get anything done without coming to us. You know? That only takes a few seats.
And they wouldn't initially, so nothing would get done. And nothing sounds better than nothing getting done in government.
Yes, nothing getting done sounds perfectly fine to me.
So the other big story was they're starting to roll out this tax plan. This is going to fall under kind of the same thing as the last one. It's not abolishing the IRS, but it's better than what we had. I don't think it's going to get passed.
No, nothing's getting passed. Nothing has been getting passed. I don't see this one working either.
So,
I mean, this is one of the things I'll take better, because I do think
it
Republicans...
immediately affects our everyday life if it gets better.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Republicans generally do want to lower taxes. I mean, that's one of the things you can rely on them on. So I'll take better for now, and if it sticks, then maybe years later we'll get even better than that. Yeah. I mean, look, libertarians don't want the income tax at all, but you know what? Lowering it is better than keeping it where it's at. So I'll take it.
And it was funny. I actually, Philip DeFranco gave just the best response to this today when he was talking about, and I bet this probably hurt him, because he used to be a progressive, and he's slowly, as he's owned a business, has slowly become more and more libertarian.
Imagine that.
Yeah. It's amazing what paying taxes will do to you. But he was talking about, he's like, I can't speak for everyone else, and I'm paraphrasing. I can't speak for everyone else, but if I had more money, that would be more projects, more people working for me, more jobs. And maybe some other companies don't do that, but I would.
Yeah, which is better than what we have right now.
And I mean, the big thing to me, the biggest part of this, and it makes everything else kind of okay. They want to take away the tax on, if you are an American company and you have made money overseas and you're trying to bring that money back, it gets nailed right now. They want to do away with that. That allows companies who are international to take the money that they're making somewhere else and reinvest it here. That is incredibly important to our economy, and we're getting screwed by that tariff. And it's not really a tariff, but it basically acts like a tariff.
I mean, it is a tariff. It's a tax on money. I mean, it's just money is the good being taxed.
Right. And then
So,
the death tax, but that really only affects really rich people. And, I'm okay. Like, morally, I'm okay with those people not being taxed because they died.
I mean, it's not just really rich people. I mean, if you own a whole lot of land, that can affect you too. Like farmers.
I believe it was, like, you had to have several $1 million worth of assets. It was like $6 million, I think. And I don't remember. I read it today because I was actually deep diving on this a little bit. But, yeah, that affects a surprisingly very small amount of people. And it's kind of a Republican talking point, and libertarians, like, we're just against taxes, so it's always going to be a talking point for us. But it just doesn't affect anyone, really. Like, the people that it affects don't really need it, obviously, but that doesn't mean that it's right to take it.
I mean, so those are all very good things. I mean, I haven't looked into this new tax proposal that Trump's putting forward. I mean, I doubt it'll go anywhere simply by the fact that Trump wants it to. I mean, it could be the best thing in the world, and unless it's bombing third world countries, the liberals will oppose it.
The Republicans might feel like they need a victory bad enough to ram this through, because they have been getting beaten up, holding all three branches right now. They need a victory. If you're a Republican, you're looking at this like, why did we elect you? You haven't done anything.
Good point.
8 months, and you haven't had a single victory. What are you doing? I mean, Gorsuch was kind of a victory. Even libertarians kind of like that guy. He's pretty solid. But, as far as what was available, he's pretty solid.
Not perfect, but yeah, pretty good compared to what we would have gotten with Hillary Clinton. That's
that
for
would
sure.
have been a disaster.
That's for sure. I mean,
and that's the thing. That's the frustrating part about Trump to me. And I know kind of the left libertarians are going to disagree with me, but as bad as Trump is as a person, he's completely ineffective as a governor. So nothing is happening. And because nothing is happening, the economy is getting better. Like, people are praising Trump. It's because he's failing. I mean, business owners are looking at him and being like, this jackass ain't getting nothing done. The economy is going to be stable until he gets out, because nothing's going to change, so we can reinvest right now. That's why the economy is getting better. If Clinton was in, Clinton, for all the things you can say about her, is very good at getting things done. Well, and those are all bad things.
I mean, that's the thing of it, though. I don't think she would have if she'd been elected, because she'd be elected. But let's remember, Republicans would still control the House and the Senate.
Yeah, but
and they're not working.
Two of those Republicans are McCain and Graham.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, they're not going to be freaking voting on the ultra-liberal Supreme Court justice. That's when I thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. I mean, I voted for Gary Johnson for president, but we didn't have a legitimate libertarian candidate in my district, so I just voted for the Republican because I assumed Hillary would win.
Yep.
And I wanted Republicans to be in there so they would stop her
deadlock
at anything she wanted to do. Yeah.
I was telling people that, like, if you don't have a libertarian, vote a Republican to deadlock the system. Well, that kind of backfired. It's still deadlocked, so whatever, but...
I mean, we technically had a libertarian, but he wasn't a libertarian. You know what I mean?
You want to drop dimes on him? Who was it?
Steve Laird. I mean, you probably never heard of him because he never came to any libertarian events or meetings of any kind.
Did he just want to run and couldn't run as whatever else he was?
I think that's what it was. I mean, he wasn't gonna freaking be in the general election against Don Bacon. He wasn't gonna win that fight. So he ran as a libertarian, and since there's so little turnout in primaries for libertarians, he won with just like 200 votes. And it's not like they were like, I mean, he's the only one that spent any money in that primary, so he just kind of got it by default. But he was so awful as a candidate that there was no way in hell I was going to vote for him. Just the worst.
We'll have to dive into that next week.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm interested in hearing about how bad this guy was.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about...
Maybe we'll have him on. and he can tell you that you're wrong. Because
Yeah.
to be fair, you're not a real libertarian.
No, of course I'm not. I'm not a real libertarian. Nobody's a real libertarian, apparently. All right, well, I think we covered everything we wanted to talk about tonight. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No.
Probably a lot. Probably a lot, but I mean, we've already been rambling for a bit.
We'll have actual political things to talk about next week, I think.
And we talk a little bit of politics today.
Yeah. But,
Well, before we leave, let's just quickly mention that Laura Ebke's campaign is, well, we always have to mention this, it's getting into high gear.
Mm-hmm.
This weekend we have a leadership planning meeting in Lincoln for her.
I cannot guarantee that this podcast is going to get out that quick.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
If you're listening to this on... Actually, no, that's on Sunday. It will be out before that.
Okay.
So let's plug that event.
Okay, yeah, it's coming up this Sunday. Let me pull up the page real quick so I make sure I have all the information right. It's coming up this Sunday at 2 p.m. and it's in Lincoln. Major planning event. Yep, Sunday at 2 p.m. at the Lauren Corey Isley Library in Lincoln. Mm-hmm. All right, now this is going to be a planning event for the rest of Senator Ebke's campaign. So if you want to be in on the ground floor of this thing, this is a good event to go to. And it's in Lincoln, so it's a lot closer than some of her canvassing events are going to be.
Yeah, that's actually been killing me because gas money is a thing. And getting out to some of her events that are on the other side of her district for me is difficult.
All right, well, anyway, that's the major planning event coming up in Lincoln this weekend. So if you need a ride from Omaha, I'm more than willing to provide one. If you live in Lincoln, then there's a bunch of people from Lincoln who are going. Just, send us a message and we'll get you in touch with somebody who will give you a ride. And the following week, I mean, I think every weekend from here on out, there's going to be some kind of canvassing event going on. I mean, October 7th is the Crete Lit Drop and Husker Watch Party. That's probably going to take place. Yeah, it's in Crete, and that's where Senator Ebke lives, and the watch party most likely is going to be at her house after the literature drop. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah. I won't be able to be there for that one. I have an interview that day, that's exciting. I've got Joshua Smith from Think Liberty, who is running for chair of the Libertarian Party.
I've heard of him.
I'm going to be interviewing him this weekend, and that interview should hit the next weekend. And then I'm interviewing
Jake Porter?
Yes, Jake Porter, who is running for governor of Iowa. And also strongly considering a run for vice chair. So, if anyone who's listening knows of someone who's running for one of these important positions, please let me know. Get in contact with me at the LPNE page, so I can reach out to them and get an interview, because we want our delegates in Nebraska to know who is running for what and who they want to support, so that when we go and select our delegates, we're selecting people who know what they're doing. We want an informed delegate contingent out of Nebraska.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know Jake Porter all that well, but I met him a couple of times. He spoke at our state convention last year, and he's a pretty competent guy.
Yeah, he seems really smart.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. He's a really cool guy to get to know. So I'm looking forward to hearing that interview. That sounds like it'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Because I actually suck at the canvassing thing, I'm terrified to do things like that. My contribution to this is all of these interviews, and I hope they're helpful to people. Oh,
and also, before I forget, we do have First Tuesday for Liberty coming up this coming Tuesday at the Library Pub in Omaha. That's a fun get-together where you just hang out with a bunch of libertarians, have some drinks, and some good conversations. Always a good time. So if you have the time on Tuesday night, come on out to that. I'll most likely be there. So we'll get to meet. Awesome.
I'm hopefully going to be at that one, and I'm going to try to bring the camera and the microphone and talk to some people about the liberties.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yep.
All right, well, that's it for me. You have anything else to say before we wrap this up?
Nope, that's it.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. I am Nathan, and along with Zach Taylor, and this has been the Guardians of Liberty podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Have a good weekend, everyone.